What exactly is it that makes an elemental hunter bow a great hunter bow? It's a pretty simple question with a somewhat complicated answer, and we're going to try to unpack it all as I count down the top 5 elemental hunter bows that you should buy, upgrade, and practice using to take out machines in the Forbidden West. Hey everyone, I'm Chaz, and today we're going to be talking all about elemental hunter bows. Now most of the time when you see tiered weapons lists like this, they're based on overall damage output and a combination of the coils and different weapon perks. But with elemental weapons, most lists don't take into account 2 key factors. First being the actual elemental type and how that element specifically affects the machine. I'm sure you know by now that each machine type has different elemental weaknesses, and taking advantage of that weakness is key to defeating the machine. And secondly, just what elements are fun to use. It's not always about being the most efficient and dealing the highest amount of damage in the shortest amount of time. So we're going to take a look at some elemental bows that aren't just about dealing damage, but are also about just having fun and taking out machines in creative ways. But first, let me dive in with a couple of honorable mentions because I wanted to keep this as a top 5 list, and that was a lot harder than I originally anticipated because there are just so many good weapons in this game. So let's start off with my top 3 honorable mentions, starting with the Fire Hunter Bow. The Fire Hunter Bow is one of the earliest elemental weapons in the game, which you can get pretty cheaply from the hunting grounds in the Dawn or the Merchant in Chainscrape. This one comes with both fire and acid arrows. Now fire as an element is pretty underwhelming, but throughout the game you do encounter a lot of machines that have blaze canisters, so keeping a fire weapon handy just in case is still usually a good idea. But the real reason I like this bow is because of the acid ammo. Acid, along with fire, is an element that deals damage over time and weakens a machine's armor plates. This makes it a really powerful option against heavily armored machines like Thunderjaws, and also your chances of dealing a critical hit are doubled when a machine is in the corroding state. So especially in the early game, when you need any advantage you can get, acid can be a really powerful option. Now my next honorable mention goes to the Berserker Hunter Bow. This is one that I solidly put in the fun to use category. Berserk is definitely not the most efficient way to take out machines, but I really like using it. Berserk is basically an updated version of the corruption element that we got in Horizon Zero Dawn. And when a machine is inflicted with Berserk, it'll attack whatever's closest to it, whether that's Aloy or another machine. So it's definitely a best practice to inflict Berserk at a distance, or at least make sure that you're far enough away from the machine that it doesn't immediately attack you. Berserk is the perfect way to cause a distraction and easily deal with a group of machines. And this is another one that can be particularly powerful in the early game when you don't yet have all the best weapons and armors. Now the Berserker Hunter Bow is a reward that you can get from the Seeds of the Past main quest, so it's even pretty easy to acquire as you'll get it by just naturally progressing through the story. And the last honorable mention goes to the very rare Wildfire Hunter Bow. This bow is available for purchase from merchants both outside the base and in Thornmarsh, and comes with fire arrows, advanced fire arrows, and advanced acid arrows. Even without any coils, the amount of acid buildup this bow does is insane. It's the highest of any of the very rare bows and the second highest of any bow, period. Now advanced acid hunter arrows are much more resource intensive to craft. I'm not gonna lie, these things are expensive. They cost shards, ridgewood, 5 metal bite, and 2 volatile sludge. So unless you're a New Game Plus or just have a ton of resources, especially volatile sludge, I probably wouldn't use this one all that often, which is why I'm giving it an honorable mention. But a lot of the late game machines and bosses are pretty weak to acid, so this is a great elemental weapon to keep handy going into the late game. Okay, so now in no particular order, because a lot of these depend on what stage you're at in the game and what elements the different machines are weak to, here's my top 5 best elemental hunter bow list, starting with the Frost Hunter Bow. Now you probably already know that Frost is an incredibly powerful element in the Forbidden West, arguably the best element of them all. When Frost is built up in a machine, it puts them in the brittle state, which essentially doubles impact damage. This is one of the absolute best ways to maximize machine damage, and I pretty much always make sure to have at least one Frost weapon equipped in my weapon wheel at all times. And the Frost Hunter Bow is one of the best early game options. You can pick up the Frost Hunter Bow from the Hunter at the Shearside Mountains hunting grounds, or from merchants in either Plainsong or Jagged Deep. Adding a couple of plus 12% frost coils can make this a really powerful early game option. I usually like to pair my frost weapon with a sharpshot bow or some other high impact damage weapon like a bolt blaster. The combination of frost buildup plus a weapon that specializes in impact damage can pretty much make quick work of just about any machine in the game. Which brings me to the next bow on the list, the Seeker Hunter Bow. The Seeker Hunter Bow comes with advanced hunter arrows as well as regular and advanced frost hunter arrows. This makes it a really great 1-2 combination for the buildup of frost and then dealing impact damage without even having to switch weapons. Now this is one that you won't be able to pick up until the mid game from merchants either outside the base or in Fall's Edge, but it's definitely a frost weapon that can carry you through the end game. It has some pretty good weapons perks as well that complement what the Hunter Bows do best. Plus 15% overdraw damage is probably the most common weapon perk for Hunter Bows, and it's a damage buff you get when you fully overdraw your weapon. But the Seeker also comes with plus 40% close range damage, which is a damage buff you get when you're inside 10 meters. This is pretty up close and personal, but typically when I'm using a Hunter Bow, I'm definitely within a close range, so this can be a pretty good damage buff. And lastly, the Seeker comes with plus 40% knockdown damage. This is a damage buff you get when a machine is knocked down, which can pair really nicely with the knockdown shot weapon technique. Now this weapon technique isn't one that I use all that often, but it can be nice if you're in a group of machines and just need to give yourself a quick buffer. Okay, and next up on the list is the Lightning Hunter Bow. The Lightning Hunter Bow is a bow that you can pick up as a reward from the Need to Know side quest with Talana. This bow comes with regular and advanced shock ammo as well as advanced purge water arrows. Shock is probably my favorite element to use in the entire Forbidden West. When a machine is shocked, they'll be completely immobilized for 10 to 15 seconds, which is a great way to deal with groups of machines, or if you're up against a heavyweight, it can be a good way to give yourself some space to catch your breath, heal up, and plan your next move. And if you have access to the Burning Shores DLC, you'll also have access to the Grapple Strike skill, which gives you the ability to perform a grapple strike on immobilized machines. This can be a really powerful way to capitalize on a shocked machine and deal some great damage. Now for Purge Water, it isn't really something that I use all that often, but it can be useful if you're going up against machines that use a lot of elemental attacks like Slaughter Spines, Fire Claws, and Scorchers. Purge Water will completely negate elemental attacks for up to 90 seconds, which can give you a significant advantage in combat, so these are definitely not to be overlooked. Alright, and next up on our list, let's move into the legendary weapons. Now of course the legendaries are going to be the best, most powerful weapons in the game, but they really do come at a cost because they can be really difficult to get and expensive to upgrade. But first up, let's talk about the legendary Deathseeker's Hunter Bow. This one is available from Duca in the arena for 80 hunting ground medals, which is a lot. And there are some really great legendary arena weapons out there, so when and where to prioritize this one is definitely up to your own individual preference and playstyle. Now of course if you wanted, you could always just drop the difficulty down to an easier level and complete the arena challenges and get the arena medals that you need, but of course we're all pros here, so none of us would do such a thing, right? But here's what's great about the Deathseeker's Bow. If you could choose one Hunter Bow to carry you through the entire game, this one would be near the top of the list. Not only does it have advanced shock ammo to immobilize machines, and it by far deals the most amount of shock buildup of any of the Hunter Bows, but it also has advanced hunter arrows to deal impact damage, making it extremely flexible in a lot of different in-game scenarios. And for weapon perks, there's not a bad weapon perk in the entire group. Overdraw damage, increased critical hit chance and damage, knockdown damage, and plus 25% shocked enemy damage. This is a damage buff you get when dealing impact or explosive damage to a shocked machine, which pairs really nicely with the Deathseeker's shock ammo. This is probably one of the most versatile Hunter Bows in the entire game, so if you like using Hunter Bows and don't mind spending time in the arena, this is definitely one that I would invest in. And finally, the last Hunter Bow on our list, which I'm sure comes as no surprise to anyone that's used it, is the legendary Scourge Hunter Bow. This Hunter Bow is an absolute beast, one of the best all-around elemental weapons in the entire game. But once again, the cost to acquire this one is pretty steep. It requires that you complete all of the rebel camps and then a final rebel camp at the very end, which will reward you with the Scourge. Personally, I liked completing the rebel camps, so this one wasn't much of a chore for me, and I would say even if they're not your favorite, but you like elemental weapons, they're worth doing in order to get the Scourge. The Scourge comes with advanced fire, advanced frost, and advanced acid ammo, and it deals the most elemental buildup for those types of any of the other Hunter Bows. Typically, I use this one to switch back and forth between frost and acid, but with 3 different types of elemental ammo and 5 coil slots, there is a lot of flexibility for how you can use this one. As someone that really likes using elemental Hunter Bows and likes experimenting with different ways to take out machines, the Scourge has definitely earned a permanent spot in my weapon wheel. Okay my friends, and those are the top elemental Hunter Bows in the game that I highly recommend that you buy, find, and definitely upgrade to their max level to get the absolute most out of using the elements of the game. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.